나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Hello, everyone. What is Samsara? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for participating. I hope this finds you well, healthy, safe. What indeed is samsara? It's one of the early terms we learn in Buddhism, but we don't spend much time really talking about it. We talk around it. So, anyway, why is it important anyway to learn all of these new words? Don't we just chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo? As long as we have a mandala and it's well protected on a wall where there's no distractions so we can focus our human minds with all our consciousnesses, eye conscious, mouth consciousness, hearing, feeling, all the consciousnesses, thought. We're making a cause, all of those words, we seem to understand what we mean. And even we seem to understand what it means when we say, well, we're trying to attain Buddhahood. We're trying to become enlightened, awakened. We have all these words. At some point in your practice, you're going to find reasons to doubt what you're doing. Okay, I'm a Buddhist. Okay, great. You labeled yourself a Buddhist. Okay, you chant. Why do you chant? To become enlightened. Okay, we all agree. But what is that? What really are you doing? And then people start to offer up words like samsara and liberation from anxiety and stress and suffering. Yeah, I know those words. Oh, okay, no more of that. Cool, sign me up. Right? And the more we study, the more we find out that Buddhism spent many, many years discussing the nature of what it is to be human, how the mind works. Why do I need to know how the mind works? I just want enlightenment. I just want to feel better. So I keep coming back to samsara. And I think that if we can define that term today, because words are powerful, right? We chant what sound like words. So when you hear Buddhahood, that has a power over your understanding of the world, your world, our world. And I think if you understood more granularly, more particularly to your own life experience, what is samsara, perhaps your practice would take on a different depth of understanding. Perhaps your conviction, your resolve to attain what we call Buddhahood would have a greater breadth of meaning. And that would help you focus more. That's my hope anyway, and I think that was Shakyamuni's hope, was that as he brought his students along for the ride of discovering how their mind works in their physical lives, and how that mind could be taught, trained, evolved, that their experience of life would be greatly changed. This thing we call experience, it's not just about getting a cut, feeling an owie, fixing the owie, and healing. That's very physical. But we can do the same thing with our minds, and we don't even realize how many owies there are in our minds until we start to investigate. So, we've been studying a little bit of the perfection of wisdom. We've been studying the Vimalakirti. This is all recent videos. So why do that? Why not just go back to Gohamsan, just go back to your mandala, chant, awaken? Well, I believe that as a practice, our human nature, we constantly need to re-enliven our reason for doing. Right? I got my little dog here with me today. Yes, your baby. So, what is samsara? Well, let me try a different approach. Let's not talk Buddhism for a moment. You and I, and your friends, your siblings, your family, people you know, if we sat down together around a nice little warm campfire and we were just being casual with one another and we said, do we all agree on what a house is? And, you know, we might all have different description of what a house is. But we'd all agree on certain basic things that a house is. Is a house if it doesn't have a living room? Does a house need to have... Okay, it has to protect you from the environment. There should be a place to prepare food in it if it's going to be a house, like a kitchen. Has to have places to sleep, whether it's bedrooms or a big long house with areas to sleep in. You know, we would hash out what a house is to us. Of course, if you have a friend or relative, or maybe you come from another land, maybe somewhere in Africa, or in the northern territories of the around the North Pole and the Yukon or Antarctica or Brazil. Suddenly, what qualifies as a house changes a bit, right? But it's a piece of architecture and it serves certain needs, and we can come to a consensus. What is a house? Good, we all understand. And then just out of the dialogue, a different word comes up as we're talking about house, and somebody says, yeah, but is it a home? Wow, suddenly the descriptions blast into outer space. What is a home? A home. Is a home a house? Is a house a home? Is a home even an architectural thing? Is home an experience of a house, or maybe a language? Is home a cultural thing? Is home a certain kind of gathering of people? What is home? I apologize. This seems to be the time of year when I have all manner of sinus and blah, blah, blah. We all do, so I hope you understand. Home. Wow, one word, and suddenly our minds are off and running. And the interesting thing to me about that is that it's easy for you and I to understand that, yeah, if we bring a person from maybe not even an English-speaking person, and we translate what home means from their culture opposed to or adjacent to our culture, There's going to be differences. Of course, there's going to be differences, right? But how do you explain the fact that you can turn to your sibling, even if your sibling is a twin, and you guys won't agree on all the facets of what makes a home? You'll agree on some, of course. And now we start to delve into the nature of samsara. Let me explain. In Buddhism, we end up with this question asking, what is the nature of experience? How do we set that up? How is it that each and every one of us experiences what should, on the surface, seem exactly the same? Same tree, same yard, same house, same gathering, same fountain. Remember the fountain analogy. And yet, somehow, each of us, no matter how closely related our upbringing and our, like your own sibling, see things, understand things, hear things, feel things differently. How is that possible? Right? We don't often spend much time asking these kinds of questions. We just, oh yeah, well, we'll agree to disagree. Or, yeah, you're wrong, I'm right. All right? We find ways to just go, okay, end of argument, don't want to talk about it anymore. You're stupid, I'm smart. You're different, I'm different. We have all these weird ways of dancing around the issue. And a Buddhist would say, well, that's samsara. And you go, yeah, what do you mean that's samsara? Right? And what does it matter? What does it matter if you think a house is green and I think it's turquoise? What does it matter? Yeah, there's a little blue in it. Yeah, okay, yeah, move on. Where's the kitchen? I need to eat. Right? We avoid drilling into our distinctions. To the point, I will say, right now, leads us to war, which is insane if you really think about it. I disagree. Well, I'm right and you're wrong. Why are you right and I'm wrong? Well, because I have bigger guns, so shut up. Right? I mean, talk about infantile, crazy behavior. That's war, isn't it? Why does that happen? How does that happen? We all observe this planet as an amazing, beautiful thing. Why should there be such difference, such distinctions, such argumentative behavior about the exact same things? Why? The big why, right? So Buddhism says, well, we're going to find out. And the more we find out, not so much why, we learn that it's not a why, it's a how, it's a what, it's a definition. A definition that somehow each and every one of us builds from these senses: eyes, ears, taste, mouth, feeling, sound, on and on. The consciousnesses. Do you see where those come from in Buddhism? Because at some point, we have to look at the when does ideas about things begin. And you might even think here, okay, well, I can remember little babies are sticking everything in their mouths, right? It doesn't matter what nation, culture, language you speak. Babies stick things in their mouth. Oh, what's this? Well, that tastes different than that. Oh, zzz, oh, that has something in it that shocks me. Those are experiences. Those are interactions with surroundings. That's an experience. Okay, we're starting to define what experience means now. Experience means an interaction, some kind of test result, right? What do they call that in scientific terms? Something response, call response, call response. It's a mechanism, right? Hearing our own voice is a type of call response. Eating a bowl of cereal, there's an expectation. Your taste buds are already alive with expectations. As you're bringing that spoonful of cereal into your mouth, that expectation is fulfilled or grossly unfulfilled or unexpected or expected and satiated. This is how we experience, right? We reach out, we get feedback. But this is a very earthly, human, well, dogs and cats do the same thing. Birds do the same thing, call, response, call, response. Even plants and trees respond to weather and dirt and conditions. Right? Why do trees lose all their leaves, deciduous trees, every year at the same time? Right? It's a call response. Oh my goodness, are you saying that trees experience? I thought that was a human trait. It's an everything trait. Even the forces that hold the moon in orbit around the earth is a call response. You could scientifically call that an experience, an orbit. Wow, now you're blowing my mind. I thought we were talking about Buddhism and human beings. We are. But at some point, we have to realize that human beings are just one more thing in the universe. We are one more created, conditioned thing. We arise out of certain tendencies and conditions. Right? Really, really, really consider what that means. That's what Buddhism says. Because the more you dig into what that means, the more you begin to understand how it is, not why it is, but how it is, that me and my sibling experience differently what arguably is the same thing. And Buddhism says, by the way, you're right, everything is the same thing. So why don't you experience it the same way? This is critical to your understanding of what you're doing when you're chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Samsara. Samsara is a term that represents the differences. The differences which Buddhism says are really not true. They're creations of your mind. The reason we don't all agree down to the nitty-gritty on what we experience is because we've constructed our experience differently. Ta-da! Simple. Buddhism goes even further, though, and says, fundamentally, all things, all phenomena, you, the trees, the planets, they're all manifest of their own conditions, their own tendencies. So don't feel bad that you think differently than your sibling or somebody from whoever, wherever, because it's built in to the way that you were born into this world of experience. This world isn't a thing. It's not a thing. This world is where things exist. And that world is made in your mind. And because it's made in your mind, it is made of different tendencies and conditions. That is why there is this disparity. It's not because differences actually exist. They exist because you say they do. It's because your mind is telling you they do. It's like this for everything, every experience, right? All the way down to quantum mechanics. You can say what a thing is, or you can say where it is, but you can't say both at the same time. What? Quantum. Because you're trying to define the changes in energy. And energy are states. But when you define them at a particular moment, you're only catching that state, in a time reference. Okay, now Sylvain's going off into space. But seriously, this is why quantum, this is why this scientific understanding of what Buddhism has been saying for millennia. To define is to capture a momentary reality. Now, if you're going to express that momentary reality as an overarching definition, you're going to be wrong. You can hang on to that, and you're not entirely wrong because it did exist for a moment. But her capturing of the same thing at a different moment, though it is arguably different than yours, is a true definition of the same thing. It's just at a different moment when the thing is a different thing, but it's the same thing. Okay, now I'm spinning, right? I just want to make an example so that you understand samsara. Samsara, you could define as an umbrella term containing all of those differences. Samsara is a condition of mind, capital mind in quotes, mind of you, me, of moon, earth, of universe, lake, fish, birds, trees, mind, writ large, mind, that itself is entirely conditioned. You don't like the word conditioned? Made up. Ooh. Yeah, the whole world that you experience, that I experience, that he and she and they experience, it's all made up. Does that mean it's unreal? In a sense. It's unreal in the sense that all of the decisions and experiences that you consider so ironclad are just momentary information about how you see, experience, hear, taste other, outside of you. And that's the primary illusion, that you are somehow separate from other. You, other, I, you, me, mine, yours. All of that distinction is what creates all of these variations. Why is it important to mentally figure that out? Do you know? Do you have an idea? That segregation of thought, that definition of difference, it defines our human condition. The mind that delineates, that identifies, that distinguishes, that dissects, is the same mind that makes something true or untrue to me, to you, to mind writ large. The human experience is innumerable decisions made from conditioned realizations that are specific to you, me, them, us. The ones we choose to agree on and the ones that we choose to disagree on, they're choices amidst uncountable variations. And once the largesse of that thinking gels in your mind, then you begin to understand why Buddhism says that's why we suffer. That's why we're stressed. That's why we're anxious. Because we can't depend on everyone, everything else outside of I agreeing. And so there's always this question. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do I know? Do I not know? Am I being led by the nose? Am I leading by the nose? Who am I? What am I doing? That's where all these questions come from, because nothing seems to resonate true. Everything's so different. Everywhere I go, everything I do, everything I think, there's always someone else to call me on it. Sometimes I learn something new and I adjust my experience, my thinking. But I work really hard to move other people's thinking toward mine, because I'm right. You're not going to tell me I'm wrong when I did this and I did this and I did this and this happened. You're saying I'm wrong? We get really attached to that identity, don't we? Samsara. Samsara is the conditioned experience of the mind. And as humans, we experience it more than anything else, certainly that we know of. Yeah, words start to get slippery, don't they? So what's the first of the Four Noble Truths that Shakyamuni spoke about early on in his teaching? All life is stress, anxiety, pain, suffering. All life. He wasn't talking about just you and me. He was talking about all life. But let's set that aside for a moment. Why did he say that? Well, I have happy moments. Not all life is suffering or pain or anxiety. Even when you laugh, you are stressed. you are anxious. This is what he was talking about. Conditioned reality, conditioned by countless decisions of experience that we make concrete in our minds, are the very source of anxiety, stress, suffering. Because you cannot exist in this human life without experiencing contradictions, even in your own mind. Not just people arguing with me, you argue with you constantly. Do I really like doing this? Why do I feel like doing that right now? I wasn't even thinking about that, right? We're constantly anxious, stressing out about our experience. Why can't we just be? Because that's not the condition we're constructed of. The big word, the umbrella word, the container word for all of this conditioned experience is samsara. That's what samsara is. Within samsara, the other Four Noble Truths come into being. Right? Yeah, all life is stress, anxiety. If we could get rid of the stress and anxiety, what would be left? Well, if we get rid of stress and anxiety, right, I'm going through the Noble Truths, all life is stress and anxiety, and this is the conjecture of Shakyamuni, to be happy, to be liberated from stress and anxiety, to stop stress and anxiety. That is the way to live this life fulfilled, amazed, happy, joyful, to get liberated from samsara, conditioned ideology of the mind, experience. How do we do that? How do we cease the formations of conditions? Right? The tendency of all things to manifest comes necessarily with conditions. How do we remove conditions from our experience of life? Well, Shakyamuni begins, here's 8 ways of behavior, of training your mind that can lead you to a liberation from those tendencies and conditions. And that is the Eightfold Noble Path. He didn't give a magic formula. He just said, here are some things to condition your experience, your mind, to train your mind to observe in these different ways as you course through your humanity, your living life. These considerations will help lead you to that answer, that experience. But of course, that was just the beginning of teaching people how to observe their own behavior. How do you observe yourself in the way that you make a living? How do you observe yourself in the way that you speak and how your words affect others? How do you consider the way that you behave in all of these different spheres of life? Communication, thoughts, private thoughts. How do you concentrate your mind? How do you trade, live with others, buy things, spend things? How do you think about great causations like killing or intoxication? How do those things work on your precious resource of mind? And then for decades, he kept raising these students and saying, okay, you're understanding more and more the nature of samsara, this conditioned existence as a human. But more and more, everything became focused on the mind. How does the mind work? How does the mind perceive? From the general to the more and more specific. How do we make the mind know non-conditioned existence? Is that even possible? Isn't existence by itself a tendencies and conditioned space? Well, yes, but there's no rule that says you must experience it that way. You can experience this world without being anchored in all of the things that stress you, that cause anxiety, that identify you. That's a tough one. So there's a lot of conversation and teaching about self. What is that self? How do you construct that self? It's such a strong attachment that there begin to be divisions in students who are saying, okay, so to be enlightened, to be Buddha, to be unconditioned, you have to annihilate the conditioned. You have to kill it off. It gets very nihilistic. Then liberation in Buddhahood is only something I can accomplish after I leave this terrible body of conditions and tendencies, right? Because this finger is a result of tendencies and conditions. So if I want to be free of tendencies and conditions, I got to get rid of this finger. No, 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 no. That is not the teaching of Buddhism. That is a very, very hard argument of attachment. That is that logic you just used is a formation of tendencies and conditions. The denial of something is the same as saying that something is. Right? This is why it gets confusing for students, because he says stuff does not exist, but it exists, but it does not exist. It's never born, it's never made, it's never truly real, because it's all a fabrication of mind. But then he says, well, there's not existence either. There's not a denial of that thing. What? What are you saying? He's simply saying that to negate something is an assumption that something needs to be negated. The real depth of understanding comes from understanding that the idea that something needs to be negated is another construct of the thing itself being permanent, somehow extant. That you and I, yes, we're human. Yes, we're here and now. That's not the debate. The debate is, how do you identify you as different than her, him, it? That mental construct of difference is the last very strong chain that connects you to samsara. And so from the very get-go, what Shakyamuni has been trying to teach us is, let the chain be this dream experience that puts you here as an identity, but don't be defined by it. Don't let your tendencies and conditions define you. Rather, let all those tendencies and conditions exist. Yeah, that mind exists. That mind of distinctions exists. But see the beautiful opportunity it just gives you to witness it. Don't be controlled by it. Everything has tendencies and conditions. That is the nature of all phenomena in the universe, including my cute little dog, you and me, this video medium, YouTube, on and on and on and on. But don't anchor your very experience, your witnessing of all of this, as a definition of you-ness. Rather than you-ness, become Buddha-ness, unattached, observing, amazed by. When you unanchor your reality from tendencies and conditions, there's no longer anything to argue about. There's no longer anything to stress about. There's no longer anything to be anxious about. And in this world of distinctions, in samsara, we could achieve a peaceful, beatific experience. Because there would be nothing to motivate the argument over what is and isn't true. Doesn't matter. It's all this. It's all this great sea of differences. Wow, look at all the differences. Oh, that's a surprise. But it doesn't affect me, the Buddha me, right? All things come and go. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to not be affected by it, to simply become an enchanted observer. And as I observe where suffering takes place, where people become more and more anxious or stressful, all I want to do is calm them, take them away from that experience. No, you don't need to feel that. Look at the world this way. Yeah. Take a breath. Relax. Concentrate on the beauty, not on the ownership. Do you see? So Buddha-ness is the alternate reality of samsara-ness. This is why it's important to understand what we mean when we say samsara. Samsara is everything that creates the conditioned mind of identification, because identification is how we create that deluded self, that idea that I am different than everything else. Boom, stress, anxiety. I am actually a construct of just being amongst the great I-ness of all phenomena. The non-identified being, experience, Buddha. That's what we're getting to. That's why when you chant for an hour or hours sometimes, and you get up from your butsudan, everything seems kind of surreal. It's hard to get your footing. And you look around in amazement and maybe a little fear, because you're unattached. You need to embrace that. You need to want to stay in that, because that is unstressed, no anxiety, unperturbed. Define that reality, your Buddha-ness, and everything that troubles you starts to just melt away because it's illusion, right? It's like the first time you tasted a food that you've avoided your whole life because, I don't know, for some reason, no, I don't like that. You never tasted it. So how can you know? I hate those arguments. I just don't like it. You don't even know why you don't like it. And then one day you eat it in a different form or something and go, man, that's good. What is that? And they say what it is and you go, no way. Yeah. You just had your tendencies and conditions, poof, blown out of the water. For a moment, you have a new realization, an enlightened realization. It's very temporary, and then we stop thinking about it. And then we talk about it like folklore. I used to hate that thing. Blah, blah, blah. And then one day I tasted it, and my goodness, I found a whole new world. Blah, 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 blah. Buddhahood is like that. Can only be understood between Buddhas, right? Samsara, deluded, possessed by tendencies and conditions. Buddha, liberated from tendencies and conditions. Samsara, Buddhahood. Once again, we see how Buddha is something achieved in this life just as endemically as samsara. You would never question your samsaric existence. You know it. What we're trying to do is change that mind of knowing to unknowing it in favor of being. Being in it instead of jostled by it. Right? I hope that makes some sense. That was a long talk about samsara, but it comes up a lot. And I think, maybe more to my concern, it doesn't come up enough. Because if you study Buddhism, you confront this thinking, this understanding of the conditioned life. And every time you read those words now, you should understand that the conditioned life, the conditioned existence, the conditioned thinking is a definition of samsara. I hope that helps you in your study. I've never really hunkered down and talked about it specifically, which is what motivated me to do this today. So I hope that helps you. If it confuses you, if it brought up some things that you don't understand, please use the comments. I want to hear from you. And wow, you're awesome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. My patrons, you know who you are. Amazing, amazing bodhisattvas. Thank you from the whole Sangha. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Bye for now. Oop, where'd my cursor go? There it is.